We are live once again. Hey everybody, it's Dan Otto. Hope you're well. Let me just close this door because I forgot to do it before we went live. So in this session, I don't know if you've heard, but the Bank of England have dropped the base rate again. So it was 0.75%. That's gone down to 0.25%. And just now it's gone down to 0.1%. So obviously the government's kind of panicking about all this. But in addition to the interest rate cut, the Bank of England have shoved about 200 billion into bonds, which is effectively quantitative easing again. Now, so what that basically means is the government's pumping lots of money back into the system to try and prop up the economy. The consequences of doing so later on, further down the line, is that after quantitative easing, it pushes inflation up at a later point, and we've basically been kicking that can down the road for since the last bit of quantitative easing. But what happens whenever you put in more money into the system, it drops the price of goods effectively in real terms. So inflation goes up. So it's fairly interesting. Obviously, it's interesting. Everything's interesting. I just put on Facebook now. You know, you put the kettle on and you come back, you check the news. You're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And you have a cup of tea and a biscuit and a bit of cake, and then you check the news again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it's like we've had a month's worth of stuff in a day. Do you know what I mean? Like over the last 3 or 4 days, and my anxiety levels are going up and up and up. So you've got Bank of England base rate dropping, you've got 200 billion pounds going into the market. Most people won't feel the effects of that as such until it's further down the line, but we are kicking the can down the line on that, and there are consequences to everything. As I continually tell my children, whatever you do today, there is a consequence further down the line. It might be a good consequence or it might be a bad consequence, but there are consequences to everything. So with that in mind, if you're an investor like I am, don't go out and buy new Lamborghinis and that kind of thing. Cash right now is going to be your friend. And I've gone through and I've checked my spreadsheet and stress tested it to see, you know, if tenants stop paying rent, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but if tenants stop paying rent, how much as a proportion of my total income can tenants not pay, and I can still get through this on a personal level? And I would suggest that you do that yourself. If you've not got a spreadsheet, then you need to create a spreadsheet. I've been rattling on about this for the last 18 months, and you know, I speak to people and they still don't have a spreadsheet with a budget on. Now is the time to really get that in place. I've been saying that for 18 months anyway, but there you go. So that's Bank of England base rate. That's the news on that. 200 billion pounds. That just confuses people. No one really understands what that means. So we won't talk about it too much. But down the line, it will push up inflation. But the government's trying to prop it back up. I made some notes before I came live, so that's what I'm looking down at. Next one then, mortgage holidays. Let's talk about that. So I've had a couple of tenants come through already, because one of the things that Boris Johnson said was that tenants, you know, if they're struggling due to coronavirus, they don't have to pay their rent for up to 3 months. And so the tenant's like, oh, brilliant, I don't have to pay my rent for 3 months. And it's like, no, you still have to pay your rent. And if you don't pay it now, it's deferred. It's not a holiday. And I wish to stop using holiday. It's deferred. It's a mortgage deferment. It's a rent deferment. If I've got a tenant that's not paying his £500 a month rent right now because he's ill at home and is on 0 hours contract or whatever his situation is, I understand that they can't pay their rent. I totally get that. It doesn't mean that they don't have to pay it. Okay, that's the first bit. And then conversely, connected to it is the mortgage side. It's a mortgage holiday. It's not a bloody holiday. It's not going to Bridlington for the weekend. It's a mortgage deferment. And you're still being charged interest on that. Okay, so I just want to get that language absolutely correct so that people understand what's going on. And if you're a tenant or you're speaking to tenants, you need to let them know that it's a deferment. You still have to pay your rent. Now, I've got a tenant right now who's not paying his rent, and he's literally about 5 days away from issuing a Section 8. We can no longer issue a Section 8. Okay, not for another 3 months. So what we're in March, so we've got April, May, June. So maybe by July, we might be able to issue a Section 8. That's crazy. This guy's now going to live rent-free. He's got no intention of paying. He's been mugged and lost his wallet. No, he had a party, a house party, and lost his wallet, and all his rent was in the wallet. Then he got knocked down by a group of lads, no police crime number, obviously. And then he's got mugged again, and his rent's been taken again. It's like, it's been going on for a while now, and it's clear that he's got no intention. And so the government has given him this opportunity now not to pay his rent. Nothing to do with coronavirus or anything like that. He just doesn't want to pay his rent. We've sent him letters. He's refused to respond. That's okay. We'll take it on the chin, and we always go for county court judgments, by the way, and then we always send bailiffs in, and we usually wait about 4 or 5 years when they've forgotten about it, they've moved on, they've got a good job or a better job, they might have a family, and then we get the bailiffs on the door. So we always do that. For those tenants who are struggling because of coronavirus and it's not their fault, like it's not anybody's fault, then we work with them. And so this is what we're going to tell our tenants when we get a phone call and a text message. We've had 3 already. This is what we're going to say to them. It is okay for you not to pay your rent, but if you can pay rent, that helps the whole portfolio. However, you also need to know that the rent will still be due in 3 months' time. However, I understand you paying that 3 months' rent in one big lump is going to be really hard. We're going to spread that cost over the following 12 months maximum. We might spread it to 18 or 24 months, but we want it paid back off in 12 months because we still have to pay everything else. In my portfolio, the mortgage payment accounts for about 33% of all the expenses in the portfolio, okay? Which basically means we've got, we spend thousands of pounds a month on repairs. We've got a decent sized portfolio. We've got a team of people that go in and clean it and repair it and fix washers and fridge freezers. And so as a proportion of our expenses, the mortgage is just a third. And it's fine saying, oh, we'll have a payment holiday. We still have to pay that back at some point, but it's only a third of our actual expenses anyway. So, and also the second thing here is that people who haven't got mortgages, it makes no difference to them. It might be they've got 2 properties and their entire income comes from 2 properties. And I see people on Twitter going, well, you should get a proper job then. Do you know what? When I see that, I'm like, right, I'm like, okay, let's put the rents up. If that's how you want to be with landlords, let's go for it. It doesn't bother me. Let's just do it. If we want an all-out war, then we'll do it. It's just crazy. I hate people saying stuff like, well, you should have a proper job then. When we provide a good service for people, providing good family homes, and we look after our tenants. A lot of our tenants have been with us for years and years and years. The longest tenant we've got is 15 years, right? I've only been in property 20 years. So we look after our tenants. When I hear idiots saying stuff like that, really winds me up. Okay, next one. Mortgage holidays, we still owe that money. Rent holidays, it's just a deferment of rent. Tenant eviction. Let's talk about tenant evictions a little bit more. If you've got any questions, put them in a little box down below. So tenant evictions, and I've seen this, by the way, on a couple of forums. There was one lady, and she's got a tenant, and they're already at Section 8, issued, gone to court, and we're waiting for bailiffs. And my understanding is that's going to be stopped. They now cannot evict a non-paying tenant. Nothing to do with anything that's going on in the world right now. The tenant just doesn't want to pay. They're ignoring all correspondence. So it's like, what do you do with that? So we're back to stress testing on your portfolio, and we're back to, I've gone through my portfolio, and I haven't applied the 0.5% off the Bank of England base rate, and obviously that's even more now. But what I did do was I ran it as though I had to cancel all my mortgages, pick up the phone them up and go, yeah, we've got this virus problem. We need to cancel all the mortgages, and we'll catch up within 3 months. And so we stress tested it in that way. Now, I heard somebody earlier on today, they'd been on the phone to NatWest for 4 hours on hold. Now, you think about this. Tenants think they're getting free money. So, oh, brilliant. It's a payment holiday. I don't have to pay my rent. Awesome. So now we're going to not pay rent. The language which is being used as being not the best language, shall we say. It's like a red rag to a bull. Oh, tenant rent holiday. We don't have to pay my rent. Oh, brilliant. I won't pay my rent. Sorry, Mr. Landlord. And you're not going to find out until the rent doesn't come in. And then you run the risk of, do I actually go and speak to all the tenants and explain, actually, you do need to be paying your rent because it's simply going to be deferred and you're going to have problems later on. And by the way, this is the thing on this, is if the tenants then don't pay afterwards and just move out, and then you take them to a small court. This is what happens in real life, okay? Is that they don't care because they've already got CCJs because we've got credit card debt and water bill debt and council tax debt and Littlewood's catalogue debt. You with an extra CCJ, like, and you as the investor who's desperate to keep your credit rating in place for the next 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, you then go into arrears. The tenants don't care. They've already got CCJs and that kind of thing. So they're not even fussed about it. Whereas you, who wants to maintain that credit rating, like, you're going to lose out, basically. This is the problem that we've got with this. And I think the government really should have done it slightly differently, but I would, because I'm biased, I'm a landlord. I think the government should have said, if you're struggling, you ask the government pays your rent. And I know people are going to argue about that because people are going, well, the government then is paying for the landlord's profit. And I totally get that. But we make profit. That is the point of being a landlord, because the difference between the rent and the mortgage is it pays our lifestyle. Absolutely, it pays our lifestyle. But it also pays for, providing services like maintenance and fridge freezers and, all of that kind of thing as well. But it's like saying to Tesco, everyone's profiting from coronavirus right now. Tesco are profiting from it. What's the profit on a toilet roll? 4 pence times 4 billion. Do you know what I mean? So everyone's profiting. There's always a profit further down the line. People go, you shouldn't be making money. Doctors are making money for all the overtime. Police are making money from all the overtime. It's just the way that the world works. We live in a capitalist society, and if you don't like that, then North Korea is lovely at this time of year. And the time of day, I imagine. I don't know what time it is there. But it's like, we live in this capitalist country, and this is just the way it is. Now, there's something extra I need to say around all of this, because it's sounding a little bit crappy what I'm saying. As a species, we've got to come together. One of the things I was really liking was that in Venice, and I've been to Venice, by the way, and it looked like my pool did last week, which was very dark green, murky. It's looking nice and blue right now because I've been working on it. Nothing else to do. But we've got dolphins in there. We've got fish back in. You can see to the bottom. You've got swans. You had wild boars running through the square in Venice. And it's like, that's awesome. And I'm thinking, is there a way that we can kind of keep that? Is there limits that we can put on tourism? And by the way, when you say putting limits on tourism, the only real way of doing that is to make it more expensive to go, which then those people who disagree about things being more expensive, because for anti-capitalists, it's always interesting, anti-capitalists are making money from the DSS paid for by capitalism. I always find that quite interesting. But I'm kind of like, is there a way that us as a species can go out and actually help more people and be nicer? When Caroline Flack died last month, sadly, everyone's going, oh, we should just be nicer to one another. And then this month, bang, get out of my way, I need a toilet roll. And it's like, come on, guys. But this is the human experience. We are who we are through hundreds of thousands of years of killing everybody. And, that's just who we are as a species. We're quite aggressive and quite violent, and we don't really look after other people. And maybe now is the time for us as a collective consciousness. I know it's Jung's collective unconsciousness, but as a collective consciousness, we're consciously thinking about how can we improve ourselves as a species and go out and help more people. Unfortunately, you then turn on the news or Twitter and you just see what people are saying. You're like, let's just forget that. That's, Do you remember a time when we used to think that stupid people was because we didn't have access to information? Now, it turns out that's not true. People are just, and I personally blame education, the lack of education, and that kind of thing. If you've got any comments, by the way, just stick them in down below. Always happy to take some comments. So I'll have a quick drink, and then we'll talk about Bank of England base rate again. How's this going to affect you guys? Just stick it in the box down below. I'd love to know about how you think this is going to affect you. How is this going to, in terms of what's worrying you, what's creeping up? We're living very anxious times. Do you remember those days when we used to have Theresa May as Prime Minister? And we used to think, can't get any worse. We find ourselves longing for Theresa May days. Do you remember those? That was not so long ago. That was like November. 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And here we are. Oh my gosh, can we just go back to Theresa May? Can we go back to when Gordon Brown was in charge and the whole, 2008 and the whole country was in turmoil because of the crisis? Can we just go back to then? Happy times, and here we are, no toilet roll. We're stocked up, by the way, because we knew this was coming 3 weeks ago. Like, you knew this was coming 3 weeks ago, and you should have stocked up. We bought extra every time we went to the shops. Let's talk about Bank of England again. So, with the base rate cut, some people get too excited by this, and then they go and start spending money. They buy Porsches and cars and houses and holidays, and I don't mean houses for investment. I mean houses to live in, or a holiday home, or some new furniture, or a new caravan, or whatever that happens to be. And I just think that's completely wrong. Right now, cash is going to be your friend. I was watching a video yesterday about a guy who sold his Tesla to buy some Tesla. I'll say that again. He sold his Tesla to buy some Tesla stock. Tesla stock went up. He sold it, and he timed the market absolutely perfect. And I don't think we should be timing markets because most people are very bad at it. But that's what he did. And he's like, right now, sell everything. Sell everything, even if you take a little bit of a loss, because as the market's starting to plummet, those people that come in at the bottom, they're going to make some money at the top. And it's about knowing where and when. Most people are bad at it. And the reason why most people are bad at it is that most people are financially illiterate. So, you know, like I felt like I was on stage then. Hands up who's read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Not many people have. Like a lot of people have, but that book came out 20 years ago. How many people today have actually read it? I speak to people. I'm like, have you read Rich Dad? I'm like, no, what is it? I'm like, okay, it's just a book from this American guy, and you've got to get through the Americanisms in there. But people haven't seen it, and they haven't read it. And I'm like, you know, your level of financial literacy is equally comparable to your wealth. I know your network is your net worth. I get that, and I agree with that. But your level of financial literacy is directly correlatable, that's a word, correlatable to your wealth, okay? And most people haven't got that right now. Bank of England dropped, they don't know what to do, and you need to start reading as much as you can. Let's face it, we've got some free time on our hands right now. I'm on day 6, by the way, of quarantine here in Spain, and I'm kind of struggling a little bit with isolation. My little 5-year-old's got a little basketball there, it's about that tall, and I'm shooting some hoops, and I'm just going to say to my wife, I'm just going to play basketball. I'm just shooting it, hoping the ball doesn't bounce into the pool. It's quite funny. So we've got some time on our hands, and that's now the time to start getting financially literate to understand what's going on in the marketplace. So we've got Bank of England base rate drop down to 0.1%, and I think that's the lowest it's ever been, certainly in the last 200 years. Pretty sure it's the lowest it's ever been. And it would be interesting. You know, we just had a 0.5% interest rate cut, and so I've got a letter came through this morning back in England. Yesterday it was 0.5% interest rate cut. This is your new rate, and now the building society is like, oh my gosh, we've got to send another one out, another letter out. And you know, my advice to them is just wait a week, because there might be more to come, depending on how bad this financial crisis is going to be. Are we going to go into recession? Yeah, we're going to hit recession. Now, I heard this last week. I think you'll like this. A recession for the wealthy is what the next sale is to the middle class. I'll say that again. A recession to the wealthy is the same as the next sale is to the middle class. And you know what I mean by that? People queuing up on Bank Holiday Monday or Boxing Day at 6 a.m. because next to having a sale. There's a big queue around the block, and all the middle class are going in. And I don't like the term class, by the way, but it's an identifier to explain the type of people, of which we have been those people and sometimes slide back into it, I'm sure. Certainly from an attitude and an educational point of view, I'm very middle class, lower class, some people would say. Scum, other people would say, and that's okay, whatever you like. So for the wealthy, they're like, ooh, that's interesting. And the day after Brexit, by the way, people flew in on helicopters into the UK to buy property. Why? The pound plummeted 15% the day after Brexit. That's if you're buying or let's use easier maths. If you're buying a £10 million house in London, okay, wait till Brexit, 15% off. You're now paying $8.5 million, because if you're paying in whatever currency you're flying in with, the pound has dropped 15%, you're getting it on a discount. The UK is on sale right now, and it's been on sale for quite some time. So after Brexit, when people are saying, yeah, but there's been a lot of investment in the UK, yeah, it's because we're on 25% sale right now. That's how much money we've lost because of currency exchanges. But again, most people don't get this. They comment on Facebook and Twitter. They have no financial education whatsoever. They don't trade Forex. And I'm not saying that's a prerequisite, but they've never read a book on it. They just say, oh, Brexit, yay. And it's crazy. They have no idea about the effects that's actually happening. And so now is the time to get really financially educated. What are you going to do with your money? Put it in the box down below because I'd like to know. What are you going to do with your money this week? For me, I'm saving the damn stuff. I'm cutting costs everywhere I can. And I'm looking at where else can I cut costs. All our investment has stopped this week. I mean, it's happened so fast. All our investment has stopped. All our refurbs are stopped. And we're holding on. We're holding on to cash. Because at some point, if tenants are going to stop paying us money, we're still going to have to pay mortgages. We're still going to have to pay maintenance. We're still going to have to pay service charges. We got one this morning where the fridge freezer has gone. It needs replacing, so it needs a new fridge freezer. It's 500 quid. So on that £500, we can't not replace the fridge freezer. It's in a HMO. The tenant's food's going to go warm. That's a lot of food because they've been stocking up because everyone's worried. So we have to spend that money. When people are going, oh, tenants just don't bother paying your rent. Well, hang on a minute. The rent pays the mortgage, but the mortgage is just one aspect of it. What about the service charges? What about the maintenance? What about all this extra stuff that it takes? Electricity, water, all this extra stuff that it takes. There's no comments coming through, by the way. I'd like to see any comments. I'd like to see what other people are thinking. I'd also like to know what you're feeling right now. I know there's a lot of anxiety going on, and I'm having a little bit of anxiety myself from time to time. This is very cathartic, by the way. You should do this too. If you've got any comments, just stick them in the box. It's only Thursday. We've still got Friday to go. So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. I might just go and have a little nap. And then I'll wake up, I'll check the news, and something else amazing has happened. Amazing or very scary, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And it's really easy just to stay on the news and watch the news channels. And so you're very myopic, where all you see is like you and the news. And I think that's really dangerous. And so you need to start taking a breath away from the news. Angelo S, thank you. I love listening to you. Great points. Thank you. Sometimes I feel like I'm just waffling. Did you hear about the lobster? And he went into the pub, and the pub said to him, out. And the lobster went, why? And the barman went, I've seen you in here giving it all that. Yeah, that's the level of jokes that we have, I'm afraid. Angela, where are you? Let me know where you are. And what are your thoughts on Bank of England base rate cut? What are your worries about tenants not paying or mortgage holidays or your job? I'd be interested to know, actually. And anybody else, same goes for you too. We are on lockdown here in Spain right now. And in the UK, I cannot believe Angelo's in Nottingham. Now, I live in Spain, Angelo, so I don't know if it's Angelo or Angelo. It's my Spanish, you see. But here in Spain, everything's on lockdown. We're not allowed out the front gate. We're on day 6. London, everyone's having parties. Everyone's on the tube, licking doorknobs. I just don't get it. I remember wondering why London is like in trouble right now. Oh my gosh, London is just a big petri dish of virus waiting to explode. What are you doing? Get home. Self-isolate right now. Stop what you're doing. Tell your boss, shove your job, I'm off home. No, don't do that. But you know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, this is about to hit the fan. And I get it. It's from the government, and then it comes down to the press. Here, we're like, we'll get away. Everyone's self-isolating. In England, everyone's having parties, licking each other's elbows. I just don't understand it at all. It's just bizarre. I think that'll do us for this particular video. We talked about Bank of England base rate. We talked about tenants and my concerns about that, and what we're going to do in terms of the deferment of rent. Not a rent holiday, it's a deferment. So if I pay £500 a month and we're not paying it this month, or next month, or the next month, month 4, when it's due, they now owe £2,000. Okay, most tenants don't understand that. So you've got month 1, 2, and 3, which is deferred, and then month 4 is their normal rent again. And it's like you've got 4 months, and they're going to think, well, I just owe 1 month, don't I? No, it's a deferment, and your job is to educate your tenants, but it's a deferment before they defer it. So when they go, look, Dan, I've got a problem, you go, okay, that's fine, but it's a deferment, okay? And the way that we're going to handle that is that we'll, that £2,000, we'll divide it into 12, call it 10, because I can do the maths. We'll divide it into 10. You're going to pay an extra £200 every single month. And they're going to say, no, I don't want to do that. It's not my fault. Well, that's just life, isn't it? We're going to have the same problem with mortgages, by the way, and loans and council tax and anything else that you're going to defer. If you might get a electricity utility holiday, it's not a holiday. You're deferring the bill further down the line. They're going to spread it over 12 months and into equal bite-sized chunks, and you're going to have to pay it. Angela's saying, bit worried about the lockdown as I'm trying to source. Yeah, okay. I have a portfolio of properties with no rent guarantees in place. I'm the same, no rent guarantees. And also I don't do insurance, by the way. So I'm concerned about that too. My answer to that is get your spreadsheet. Get on your spreadsheet. You should have income and outgoing, and you should stress test that spreadsheet. And when I say stress test it, delete, 25% of rents, let's just say, or not 25% off the total rental income, and see what the situation is. Like we can go down to, I think about 50% of tenants, if they didn't pay, we could still survive it. So you need to do the same. So you're trying to source. Now the problem with sourcing, we did a video yesterday about how to do virtual tours if you're not there using Zoom, where you've got the investor and you've got the vendor, and you've got you, and the vendor actually walks people around. You can both ask questions. That's a really good way of doing it. And you can install Zoom on your phone, and you tell the vendor that. And then that way you're not sharing contact numbers with the vendor and the investor, because the worry is that the investor will try and keep you out of that deal. So that's a really nice way of doing it, Angela, if that helps. But if you are sourcing, obviously, networking events are out, even maybe doing viewings are out. And so now you need to move everything online and move that business online. So you've got responding to other people's adverts, putting out your own adverts, going into Facebook groups. You've got all of that stuff. And then you've got to find a way, and you need to write this down as a flow chart. You know what I mean by flow chart, right? So you've got to write a way, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. I know you know what a flow chart is. If no, it goes back to the start. You've got a flow chart how this process is going to look for you. My handwriting's awesome. And that way it will help you plan much, much better in terms of what you're going to do and handle this. I think you have to assume this is not going to change for 6 months. And actually, when I think the words come out of my mouth, I'm like, that's really conservative. I might be completely and utterly wrong. And this time tomorrow, everything's great. The sun is shining. The pool is blue. Everyone's surfing on the beach. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think the football is going to be on till September at least. The NBA finals won't be on until September. I think we're in full shutdown for 6 months. And, there are more drastic things to come out by the government to try and prop up. And then we're going to have to deal with fallout. So any like the fallout of that, any costs that you've got right now, you've got to cut those costs. You've got to save as much cash. I wouldn't, or rather, I am not speaking to tenants right now and saying, okay, we've got this problem, and you need you to still pay your rent, because I don't want them to go, oh yeah, I'm going to stop paying my rent, thanks for phoning. I want them to worry about it, and then if they can't make that payment, then they phone me and go, Dan, I got a problem, and then I can work with them, okay? But I don't want to put the idea in their head that they think they can just get away with not paying their rent just because other people are not paying their rent because they're ill with a virus, or they are at home and can't work. The rent is still payable. My bills are still payable. If I get a utility bill from Npower and they go, you don't have to pay it for 3 months, great, I still have to pay it. It's just not for 3 months. And this idea of a deferment or a payment holiday is not a payment holiday, it's a deferment. So for me personally, I'm not going out and saying this to my tenants, but if And when they come through, we've already had 3 already, then we're having that conversation to explain to them exactly what's going on, because the government seems incapable of explaining this shit properly. Really, really frustrating. The guy today was on the phone to NatWest 4 hours. He was still on hold, by the way. He'd washed his car, he'd been to the toilet, he'd watched Iron Man 4. Do you know what I mean? Still on hold. And it's like, 100,000 people with NatWest mortgage are going, I'm going to get a mortgage holiday. Brilliant. I don't have to pay my mortgage for 3 months. Oh, free money. Why not? They're on hold for 4 hours, and it's not free money. It's a deferment. You still got to do it. So I don't know what's going to happen there. That will do us. It was supposed to be a short video about Bank of England base rates, mortgage holidays, tenants, not available to evict tenants. Just have to suck it up, basically, unfortunately. Stay off the news and stress test your portfolio so that you know where the danger zone is, where the actual danger zone is. One of the problems is that when you think there's a monster under the bed and you don't look under the bed, you think it's much bigger than it actually is. And if you don't look and quantify, this is the word I use quite often, we like to quantify what problems are. It's one of the ways we deal with coaching clients. We quantify the problem and we go, oh, it's not that big. And they go, no, of course not. The problem is you didn't look at the problem properly and quantify how big it actually was. And then you're panicking because you think it's this big, scary monster, when actually it's this. Now, if we're getting close to that 50% mark, where 50% of tenants are stopping paying, then I can start getting worried. As we get to 60% of income instead of 100% of income, I can start getting worried at that point. But right now, I don't need to get worried. So the only reason I can think like that is because I've quantified it and I know how big that problem actually is. And most people have got their head in the sand, and they don't know how big the problem is, and so they panic even more. So start quantifying exactly how big the problem is, and then as you move forward, you'll be able to react in a much better way from a position of knowledge and confidence rather than fear. All right, that will do us. Hope you find that useful. Thank you for joining in, Angelo. I appreciate that. And we'll speak to you guys on the next video in an hour when aliens have landed on the White House lawn and Mars, it turns out, has got aliens on it, and God does exist, and mermaids too. It's that kind of week. Have a good one. We'll speak to you soon. Take care. See ya.